We will now be talking about one of the most important subjects in today's management world, organizational change. The one important thing that we all need to realize is that change, it will, whether you want it or not, whether you like it or not. Heraclitus, the famous philosopher, once said that you cannot bathe in the same river twice, and he was perfectly right. The same thing applies to organizations. Organizations change continuously and at every infinitesimally small time. You may not notice the change, but changing it is. The environment in which the organization operates is changing. The people who are working in the organization are changing. The organization itself is changing as an impact of these two factors. Naturally, change has to be understood, anticipated and managed. If you don't, you cannot survive. If you are a student of history, you would have noticed that the pace of change has become very fast. In fact, for the keen observer, the history has changed the fastest in the last 50 years, more than what it has changed in the last 500 years. Therefore, we must understand that change has to be coped with, change has to be managed. Now the question comes, how can we manage change? The first requirement in this is that you have to prepare the organization for a change, create a readiness for change. In fact, if you have noticed the changes that have taken place in the organizations, you will find that many organizations have become entirely different. They have become a transformed entity. They are no longer the organizations they used to were. In fact, large public sector organizations of India also have changed dramatically in the past 10 years. If you take the example of the State Bank of India, the largest banker for the Indian people, the State Bank is no longer what it used to be. The technology, the kind of behavior which people exhibit now has become entirely different from what it used to be once upon a time. Even the banks like the United Bank or the United Commercial Bank, which were typically traditional banking organizations, have become different. And why this has happened is because the market has forced to bring down this change. The competition, the opening up of the markets, that has forced the organizations to change. And the only rule in this changing global market is either you change or you perish. Is there a model for change? This is the question that has to be answered. Yes and no. Yes, because there is a pattern which you need to follow if you really want to change, and no, because this pattern has to be modified to suit different situations. One view is that there are three steps to managing change. The first step is unfreezing, the second step is changing, and the third step is refreezing. It is like changing the ice in the refrigerator. You are used to keeping ice in the ice box of the refrigerator. Now if that ice becomes stale, you need to change it. How do we do? The first thing we do is that we need to melt the ice. That is what we call unfreezing, because unless we melt the ice, we cannot put in more water in that. So the first step is unfreezing, then of course we need to put in fresh water, and finally we need to refreeze. And this is a change model that works in most of the cases. However, we need to understand that the same model has to be improvised according to different situations. So we will be talking more on this as we talk on change management.